She was born in a place where hope seemed more like a dream than a reality. A dusty village where the sun burned the earth, and survival was the only thing people thought about. Her name was Amara. She didn't come into this world with a silver spoon, or even a wooden one. She was born to a family that barely had enough to eat, where love was stretched thin because survival took most of the energy her parents had left. But from the very beginning, there was something about her eyes. They carried a kind of quiet fire, like she was seeing something more than the cracked walls around her, something more than poverty, something bigger than the life she was given. As a little girl, Amara would sit under the only tree in her village with a tattered book she had found in the trash. The pages were missing, the cover torn, but she held it like treasure. She couldn't even read at first, but she would trace the letters with her fingers as if touching them would give her the meaning hidden inside. When an old teacher passing through noticed her fascination, he stopped, crouched beside her, and began teaching her letters and words right there in the dirt. From that day forward, something awakened inside her. Amara was not just hungry for food. She was hungry for knowledge, for stories, for a life that stretched far beyond the limits of her small world. But life has a way of testing those who dare to dream. When she turned 12, her father fell ill and passed away. The weight of survival fell on her mother, who began working endless hours in the market. Amara was told to quit school to help, to sell fruits and vegetables on the roadside. Neighbors whispered that education was wasted on a girl anyway, that her future was sealed the moment she was born in that village. She felt the sting of those words, but deep inside, she couldn't let them bury her fire. Every night, after the market closed and her mother was too tired to even speak, Amara lit a small candle, pulled out the few books she had borrowed from anyone willing to lend them, and read. Sometimes she read until the candle burned out. Sometimes she read until her eyes could no longer stay open. She promised herself one thing. She would not let the world tell her who she was meant to be. At 15, she walked barefoot to a city several miles away to sit for a scholarship exam. She had no money for transport, so she woke before dawn and walked until her legs ached. She entered that examination hall among children wearing neat uniforms, carrying fine pens, while she only had a second-hand dress and a pencil barely sharp enough to write with. Many looked at her with pity, some with disdain, but she kept her focus. She remembered every late night, every word she had studied by candlelight, and she poured it all into the exam. When the results came weeks later, the world around her shifted. She had scored among the highest in the region. A full scholarship was offered to her, something no one in her village had ever achieved. Her mother cried when she heard the news. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pride, of relief, of hope. For the first time, it felt like the cycle of struggle could finally be broken, but the journey was only beginning. The city was not kind to a village girl like Amara. She was mocked for her accent, for her clothes, for the way she carried herself. She often ate alone, too poor to afford the lunches her classmates bought. There were nights she thought about giving up, nights she cried silently in her small dormitory room. Yet, every insult became fuel. Every rejection became a reason to push harder. She studied harder than anyone else, not because she wanted to be the best, but because she knew failure meant returning to the same cycle of poverty that had chained her family for generations. By the time she graduated high school, Amara had become the top student in her district. She was awarded another scholarship, this time to study abroad. The girl who once read books under a tree was now boarding a plane for the very first time, heading toward a future she could only imagine. In a foreign land, the challenges multiplied. New culture, new struggles, endless loneliness. But the same fire in her eyes kept her going. She worked odd jobs to survive, cleaning offices late at night while attending lectures by day. There were times she slept only 3 hours, her body exhausted, but her spirit unbroken. Years passed, and her sacrifices bore fruit. Amara not only graduated with honors, but went on to pursue groundbreaking research in sustainable energy. She had one goal: to create solutions that could help villages like the one she came from, places forgotten by the world. Her innovations attracted attention. Awards followed. Suddenly, The world that once ignored her was now celebrating her. She was invited to speak at conferences, to share her story, to show others what resilience could achieve. And one day, she returned home. But this time, she didn't walk barefoot under the burning sun. She returned with solutions, with programs, with technology that brought electricity to her village for the first time. The same tree she once sat under as a child, reading her tattered book, now stood in a village lit by solar lamps her project had built. The children of the village gathered under that light to read, just like she once had, but now with endless possibilities ahead of them. Her mother stood by her side, tears once again streaming down her face, not of struggle, but of pride. Amara had risen from nothing. She had taken the pain, the rejection, the poverty, and transformed it into power. The same girl who was told she had no future had changed not only her own destiny, but also the destiny of countless others. The whispers that once mocked her name were now replaced with cheers, and the world finally saw the fire that had burned inside her all along. Her story is more than just inspiration. It is a reminder that where you start does not define where you end. That sometimes the greatest leaders, the most powerful changemakers, are not born with privilege, but with scars. And those scars, when embraced, can become the very strength that changes the world. So if you're listening to this story, wondering if your struggle will ever end, remember Amara. Remember the barefoot walk to the exam hall, the nights of studying by candlelight, the loneliness of being misunderstood, and the victories that followed. Remember that within you, too, lies that same fire. And maybe, just maybe, your story will be the one that inspires the next generation to rise, to fight, and to change the world forever.